Welcome to the Progress Texas Happy Hour.
Welcome to the Progress Texas Happy Hour. I'm Executive Director Kathleen Thompson. It's been a huge week for progressive political news. Did you feel it? The ground shook with progressive gains in Wisconsin, Florida, and D.C. Closer to home, progressives in Houston are looking for another win in the U.S. House, but you may not have heard of the fight that's happening between Texas Democrats and Governor Greg Abbott. No taxation without representation is basic U.S. history, and it's a core tenet of our democracy. But Abbott is withholding the delivery of this promise to nearly 1 million Texans in Congressional District 18 by delaying the special election to fill the seat and give representation back to Houston residents after the death of Sylvester Turner for purely political purposes and to give Republicans in the House a single vote advantage. This area, formerly represented by the late Barbara Jordan, Sheila Jackson Lee, and Sylvester Turner, holds national importance, and it's one of the most diverse cities nationally. Those are reasons why our racist governor is directly and purposefully disenfranchising millions of people of color. Abbott has the power to deem the election an emergency and has already let one opportunity pass by to return power to the people, and that was allowing the May 3rd election deadline to go by, keeping this special election off the upcoming ballot. Here to talk about it today, our state rep and House Democratic Caucus Chair, Jean Wu, and newly elected Texas Democratic Party Chair, Kendall Scudder. Welcome to you both.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
To start, would you each please very briefly share with our audience what you're working on at the state legislature and the state party? Chair Wu, let's start with you.
So right now, as the minority leader in the House, leading the Democrats, my main objective is to keep the Democrats united and to keep them punching in the right direction, which is at the Republican policies that are like strangling the state. As bad as Trump is in basically destroying our economy, destroying our country, the Republicans in Texas are doing their fair share too. And we're doing our damnedest to stop them from doing it, stop them from destroying everything that our people have built over the past 3 decades.
Yeah, and I'll chime in here. A lot like Leader Wu, I also have the obligation of making sure the Democrats are united and punching in the right direction. It's been a big week for us at the Texas Democratic Party. This is the close of my first week today. And so, we're administratively kind of getting adjusted here and making sure that the party is nimble and efficient, and that our comms moving forward is going to be more punchy, and that people see that they have a Texas Democratic Party that is ready to throw down and fight back. And everything that we do is how can we better support folks like Representative Wu and all of the great work that they're doing to fight back legislatively.
And talk to me about this delay in representation. What's happening specifically in this district? Tell us why you're concerned about it, Chair Scudder.
Well, we're concerned about it because there's 800,000 people now in the United States who are being denied a member of Congress. In the past, we've seen the governor schedule these things a whole lot quicker, but he's just playing political games with whether or not people should have a voice in their government. And frankly, if he doesn't schedule it soon, he needs to lawyer up because we're going to see him in court. It's unacceptable. It's un-American. It's not conducive to running a republic. And so that's what's happening is they're playing political games with people's rights to be represented in their own government.
Rep Wu?
I think that's absolutely right. I think what's even worse is this is objective racism, right? While the reason he's doing it is political, but he would not dare do this to a majority white district, right? Because this is a majority Latino and Black community that he feels free to do this, that he doesn't think there are consequences for doing this. And what are they going to do to me, right? I think this is one of the things that we should be talking about, how carefree they are to scuttle our rights, to scuttle the rights of minorities, but he bends over backwards to make sure that the people who are in power, people who have money, people who are already in charge, make sure that they have every whim catered to. This is standard. This is par for the course for not only Abbott, but for Republicans across this nation.
Rep Wu, I want to stay with you here. Harris County has been a major target of voter suppression for years. There's a lot going on, but I want to make sure that people have the correct picture here. Harris County has been a target of voter suppression, not just by Abbott, but the Republican-dominated legislature. I'm talking about stomping out innovative and accessible voting measures that increase public participation, like the drive-through voting during the absolute worst parts of COVID, to purging 23,000 mail-in ballots with a majority purged in Harris County. Talk to us about the ongoing voter suppression that's been happening, not just in this election, but for years.
Well, for a long time, Austin was the favored target of Republicans because, it was an obviously blue area in a very red state. Now, Harris County has taken over that job because Harris County has now become a blue dot in a red state. And they can't stand it because Austin's one thing, but Harris County accounts for like a quarter of the state, right? If Harris County goes, the state goes. And they know that. And so they're doing every possible thing they can to make life not only hard, make it harder to vote for Harris County citizens, but harder to do everything. They're finding ways to attack Harris County in every which way. Right now, they're trying to strip about like a couple of $100 million out of our toll road authority so they can give it to the city to take care of the city's shortfall, right? That's short funding our hospital systems, our jails, our everything. And because it's all political. And like what people need to do is start saying like, no, we're not going to do this. And the big reason of why, the real reason why they're making these attacks on Harris County is because Harris County is showing other counties the way. Because Harris County is showing how it's done, how we can increase engagement, how we can make sure that people still vote in times of crisis. That's really dangerous because if those things happen in other places, more people will vote. And if more people vote, then the billionaires that tell them what to do have less power.
Absolutely. If you're not afraid of the people's vote, you wouldn't be suppressing the vote. Chair Scudder, earlier you talked about Governor Abbott lawyering up. Governor Abbott may soon face legal action. We've heard from Harris County Attorney Christian Menifee, who has announced that he'll be running to fill this seat. He said, quote, "The 18th Congressional District is not a political toy. Your silence is suppression. Your doing nothing is disenfranchising our community." So legally, the governor is within the law to hold this seat open, but the message every day of additional delays is sending a clear message to everybody who lives in that 18th Congressional District that Greg Abbott wants to silence you in your nation's capital. And this week, U.S. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries also made legal threats to the governor. Will you talk about what may be happening next with lawsuits?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's going to be the Texas Democratic Party or if it'll be one of the candidates in that race or, Hakeem Jeffries, who's recently spoken about that as well. But it's unconstitutional. You cannot just deny people the ability to be represented in government simply because you don't like what they want to do or where they're at. And as Rep. Wu said, I mean, it is inherently racist. 800,000 people that are primarily Black and brown are being denied this. And it's not coincidental that that's the case, is what's happening. So there are huge civil rights issues that are at play here. All we can do is kind of hope that the governor is doing the right thing. But I've learned to not count on that. That's never seems to be the case. And if he's not, then we're going to go to the judiciary and force him to do the right thing. Because you can't just at your own whim decide who does and does not get to have a voice within their government.
Right after the death of Sylvester Turner, I had someone ask me what's going to happen and when would Governor Abbott call an election. And I said, you know what? Let's watch him take a page from Mitch McConnell and hold this seat open as long as he possibly can, because he's afraid of the people and he's afraid of losing political power. And here we are. Let's talk about the path ahead for folks in Houston. Rep. Wu, you had a personal connection to Sylvester Turner. What do you hear from Houston residents? What are they saying to you about this right now?
I mean, I think people across Houston are mourning the loss. I think very clearly that Sylvester was well known as just a person who has dedicated his entire life to us, right? He wasn't there to enrich himself. He wasn't there to make himself feel better. He was there because he was sick of watching people suffer. He was sick of watching Black people get stomped on, Latinos not getting a fair shot, and everyone else just struggling. And that's why I loved him, because every time we had a fight, every time there was a cause for justice, guess who was at the front? And I could count on him every single time. I didn't have to ask. It was not a question that we needed to ask. Is Sylvester on the side of justice, right? The answer is emphatically always yes. And that's what people remember. And that's what people loved about him, that he was selfless, that he was tireless, that he always fought for the little guy. You know, that's a true American. That's a true American hero, right? Someone who dedicated his life to us and fought for all the things that were right and all the things that we believe in about this country. Yeah, it's a huge loss.
San Antonio friends, join us in the Alamo City on Tuesday, May 6th for the first time since 2017 for a live podcast taping and fun get-together with like-minded progressives. You'll have a chance to visit with office holders, candidates, and activists, grab a beverage, share stories, and celebrate progress in Texas, which doesn't happen without you. During our Party for Progress and live podcast recording, come meet people doing good work to push progress forward in Texas. You can sponsor the event and this podcast and RSVP early using the link in our show notes. Hope to see you in San Antonio on Tuesday, May 6th.
Chair Scudder, how do you plan to keep us spotlighted on this? There's so much news coming out of Austin, coming out of D.C. How are you going to keep up the fight with Abbott, barring a Houston Ship Channel coffee party? We don't live in Boston. There's not going to be a Boston Tea Party. What are you going to do to make sure people keep this in the news every day and people know what's happening to this entire congressional district?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, let me be real clear. The Texas Democratic Party is laser focused every single day on making sure people understand how we advocate for working families. And that includes making sure that they have voting rights. And so, we'll do our best to try to keep people in the loop. I would encourage them to listen to the Progress Texas podcast and some of our more progressive outlets around the state. And whether or not the mainstream media chooses to cover it, whether or not you hear about it day to day, we're still going to hunt this down like a dog, because it's really important that we're doing that. So ultimately, whether or not people hear about it, we're still here to do the work. We may not always be show horses, but we're workhorses. But we're going to do everything we can to make sure people are at least abreast of what we're doing in day to day. But there's a fine line there. This can't be the only thing we talk about. We have to make sure that people understand that their public schools are under attack, that Greg Abbott is ready to continue to shut down even more of the schools that have shut down around this state. And they're not going to stop until they've dismantled every public school in this state brick by brick. There are lots of issues that are happening right now. This isn't the only one, and we'll cover everything that we can. But whether or not it's in the news, we're going to be pursuing everything that we can to make sure that justice is delivered here.
Yeah, I want to echo about what's in the news. I spoke recently to an angry voters group that was Democrats, Republicans, and Independents recently in Dallas. And I talked about some voter suppression bills in the legislature and talked about some things that aren't making the news and breaking through, like the voucher scheme. And a lady came up to me after and said, "Why am I reading about changing the New York strip steak in the newspaper and not anything that you talked about?" And I said, well, there's really good information in Texas behind paywalls. So it's important that you talk to your neighbors and your community about what you know is the truth and you know what's happening in Texas. So I encourage all of our listeners to be following the TDP and Kendall Scudder and Rep. Jean Wu and the Texas House Caucus, so that you are getting the news and it's not the fluff that is free or disinformation that's free across Texas.
Can I jump in on that just real quick?
Absolutely.
That's actually exactly the point, right? So why are we talking about the Gulf of America? Why are we talking about freedom dogs and I don't know what else Freedom fries and whatever nonsense garbage they have, the Texas strip instead of New York strip, who the hell cares?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think more of us need to be screaming that at the top of our lungs because like our country is on fire. We are burning right now. The stock market is crashing. All our federal employees have been fired. Veterans have lost their jobs. Disabled people have no money to survive on. Like seniors about to have Social Security cut. Our country is on fire. Why are we talking about steak? Right? And this is their plan all along to get us to talk about just nonsense, to talk about bullshit, instead of talking about like, why are our families not moving forward? Why are we working our asses off and like we're not moving forward? And like people like me, even white collar people with professional degrees, we're like, are we going to make it this year? I don't know. This time and time again, I've asked people like, tell me, look at me in the eyes and tell me, you can tell your children, hey, you're going to have a better future than I had. Not a single person out of hundreds I've asked, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, not a single person will look me in the eye and say that they will tell their children that. Because they know it's not true. If that is the America we're leaving for our kids, we should be in the streets.
This week alone with these tariffs, this administration has passed the largest tax increase on middle-class families that we have seen in my lifetime.
That's right.
Life is hard as it is without these billionaires always trying to make it harder. And the Democratic Party's goal is to try to make your life easier. Look what we're facing right now. Insurance rates are through the roof. Your rent is constantly going up, and you have to pay that because you can't afford a home that has gotten out of reach for people because interest rates are too high. Everything that we do right now is not working for people like us. It is a rigged economy where the billionaires are profiting on our backs as we're trying to just exist in a society where they're constantly trying to make it harder. And this public school issue that Rep. Wu is standing on the front lines of is the quintessential example of that. Because why do they want to shut these schools down? Everybody say that. Well, why would they want to do that? They want to do that because when your kids are educated, they have to pay them more. And they want to keep your kids uneducated so they can keep them on assembly lines and on farms instead of letting them pursue what their dreams are. The American public school system is the greatest tool for economic mobility that we have ever seen on this globe. And their fight to dismantle it is one to keep you and your kids poor and to make sure that you never have the opportunity to get out from under the boot that's on your neck. And that's why what Rep. Wu is doing to protect our public schools is so crucial. So issues like this, we're here to fight on them, but don't be surprised if we don't spend all of our time sitting around and talking about it because we've got other things that we have to be about.
I know we're getting close on time. Do you have closing resources, closing calls to action? Rep. Wu, let's go to you.
Follow us on HDC, House Democratic Caucus. Look us up on every social media platform. We're there. We're taking the fight to them. And really, we're trying to amplify the voices of Texans, right? The Republicans are shutting down town halls. They're not picking up their phones. They're not answering emails because they know the bulk of Texans are against them, not just Democrats, not just Republicans, but Texans united are against their policies. Their policies are not only destroying the nation, but destroying the state piece by piece. And people are telling them to stop. The state's on fire. The country's on fire. Stop. And they're not listening. And so if they're not listening, Democrats will listen. We will listen to the people. And what we're telling them is, hey, it doesn't matter if you're white and rural or urban and minority. We have the same problems, the same failures. When your schools fail, your community fails just like ours. When your hospitals go down, we die just like you. And so if you are tired of it, you are tired of being nickeled and dimed to death by the state, by companies, by everybody, it's time to go fight. And let's put down the bullshit. Put down the anti-trans stuff, put down the book bans, put down all that stuff, because none of that has to do with why you're not getting a raise, why your food costs as much as it does, and why you're going to pay an extra 30% at Walmart now, right? They have nothing to do with that. Let's talk about why things are going up. Let's talk about why things are going wrong in your life.
Absolutely. I really appreciate the why. I think people need to understand why things are happening, not just understand that they are happening and connect those dots that are not a big cork board of red string. It's a straight line. Chair Scudder, how about you? Give us your closing thoughts and resources and your calls to action, please.
What I'll just say, it's a new day in the Texas Democratic Party. I'm on my 5th day on the job.
Right.
And we're doing our best to rebuild this party from the ground up so it can be helpful, so that it can be efficient, so that it can be nimble. In order to do that, we need a lot of help and a lot of patience and a lot of people willing to hit reset buttons on relationships they've had with our party in the past. And because we're moving forward all on the same team. I think it's crucial for people to understand that in order for us to ever be successful in this state, we've got to stop the infighting. We've got to stop pointing at each other, and we have to point forward. Every ounce of energy that you have is directed at the ire towards Republicans, not towards each other. If you meet a person that's active and you don't like 60% of them and you like 40% of them, we're focusing on that 40% because we're all on a team together, moving forward in the right direction to try to win this election. You can contribute to this new era at txdem.co/New Era TDP. And we would love to have sustaining members, $5, $10, $25. That's how we build not only our incredible data infrastructure, but keep year-round organizers and how we show up in every part of this state that has been ignored, from Amarillo to Beaumont, Texarkana to El Paso, Brownsville, and everything in between. If we want a present party, we've got to show up because Elon Musk isn't writing us giant checks. And so we have to count on people like you to come in and help us. And I'm just eternally grateful for the opportunity of all of you to be here to convey what this new vision for the party is and to talk about the great work that we're planning on doing.
Chair Scudder, I want to have one follow-up with you. Right after your election, I got to speak with you briefly about what people can do on the ground level. And you mentioned precinct chairs. Would you say one thing about that? That's something I used to do in my community, and it really did matter.
Yeah, I want to set the level set for a second and tell you where we're at. In Texas, there's about 9,000 precincts. We got 4,500 precinct chairs. Half the precinct chairs in this state are vacant. 55 counties in this state don't have a county chair. That's more than 20%. If we're going to get serious about this, we've got to build our infrastructure. So check your imposter syndrome at the door. Stop asking whether or not it's something you can do. You can, and we're here to help you. And we're going to do trainings. We're putting together onboarding trainings now that we're going to have in the field. Make sure everybody knows what expectations are, what resources are available to you, and to make sure we're setting the tone that we're all in this sucker together. If we are not meeting this moment, our children will remember it.
That's right.
And so right now is the time for you to get off that couch if you're on it. Stop listening to podcasts if that's all you're doing all day, because knocking on doors and organizing your community is how we're going to end up winning this sucker. Reach out to your local county party to become a precinct chair.
Thank you so much, Chair Scudder and Rep. Wu. We're going to be following this story about CD 18 and take you all where it leads us. And we may have you back about this, but so many other things as well. Like you mentioned, there's a lot going on right now. So thank you both for your time today. I know it's been a busy week, Kendall Scudder, and it's a busy time at the legislature. Rep. Wu, we really appreciate you.
Thanks for having us, Kathleen.
Here at Progress Texas, we're in the business of countering the conservative disinformation machine that's responsible for the mess in D.C. and Austin. And while that message is funded by oil and tech billionaires, religious right-wing groups, and more, we rely mostly on everyday Texans who value our hard work and share our belief that a Texas that works for everybody is the Texas we want to live in. We don't do subscriptions or paywalls because we believe the message of progress is one that everyone should have access to learn from, to act on. So if you become a regular listener, we could use your support, and no amount is too small at progresstexas.org/donate. Thanks to regular folks like Lavelle Ferris, Irene Escalante, and Marta Crawford for their new sustaining donations just this week. Like them, would you please go to progresstexas.org/donate. Thanks for listening and all you do to press progress forward here in the Lone Star State. See you next time.
Hey, real quick, y'all. Progress Texas podcasting director Chris Mosier here with an update since we recorded this conversation yesterday. Governor Abbott has released a statement claiming that his delay in calling this very important election for Congressional District 18 is because Harris County is prone to inaccurate or fraudulent elections, a very common Republican talking point, and it's especially remarkable considering that usually Republican charges of election fraud in Democratic strongholds like Houston don't happen before an election is even called. Progress Texas Executive Director Kathleen Thompson says, quote, Houston, being our biggest, most diverse city, has had the same logistical issues that every other big city has regularly, but the voters of Houston are consistently targeted by Governor Abbott because he knows he and other Republicans can't perform well there. For example, in the 2022 Texas gubernatorial election, Abbott lost Harris County to Democratic challenger Beto O'Rourke, who secured about 54% of the vote, while Abbott received about 44.5%, a margin of over 104,000 votes in this single county. In the 2024 presidential election just last fall, Harris County supported Kamala Harris over Donald Trump by 5 percentage points. As Texas House District 132 candidate Sarah McGee put it on Twitter, in the time it took Governor Abbott to make his lie-filled video yesterday, he could have been signing a proclamation to call the election. In fact, he could have called the election any day this week, last week, today. He is afraid of the people, unquote. Thanks, guys, for listening. Have a great weekend. We'll stay on top of this story.